Hello, beautiful people, and welcome. Hi to the Skirk first impressions. I've done a good amount of testing on Skirk teams now. I did way too much testing on combos, and arguably not enough testing on teams. But that's mainly because this Abyss is kind of annoying for testing. The first side has some pretty strict team building requirements that with Skirk's teams a lot because of the Spirit Seeker having a cryo shield. You can deal with this shield with Citlali, but you have to stare at the enemy for like 40 seconds, which is very annoying. And second side testing in general just kind of sucks. But honestly, Skirk is a pretty straightforward character in terms of her teams, so I'm okay with that for now. And I did enough testing to at least get an idea for how things go. So, first thing I want to talk about is they buffed her attack speed, or her attack animation. I'm not sure if it was actually a buff, or it's just that the early leakers we had were bad at the video game and weren't able to get the combos that you are able to do. But she is getting more attacks than was theorized early on. Obviously, that means that her combos are slightly better, and also that means that her split rotation isn't as good, and same for the burst focus only, because the normal attack stuff is better and everything else did not get better. Initially, in my early calcs for her, I was assuming that you were getting 3 full strings and then 1 and 3, which is about 9,000 motion value. Now, you can very easily get 4 full strings, which is 13% better. But there's also specific combos that get you even more than this. Mainly, if you just spam normal attacks and do the charge attack when you need to, you actually can get an additional normal attack before your infusion runs out, which is now 17% better. But that's not the optimal combo. You have 2 possible combos that are better. You can do N3W, which is the most cringe thing in the game. I hate wall cancels. If you've ever played Sethos and like tried to play him perfectly, you will know how cringe it is. Wall cancels suck. Basically, when you're attacking on Skirk, if you just like do your attacks with a delay between them, it keeps going with the string, right? It doesn't stop the string in the middle. But if you input a walk in between your attacks, you get to start over from the start. Now, the way that Skirk's animations work is if you just hold W, it takes a little bit for the walk to go through and for you to be able to do a normal attack. I'm gonna try to get my mouse close to my mic so you guys can hear my inputs. You guys can see some of my inputs aren't getting registered because the game just refuses to. However, if you spam W instead of holding it, the inputs get registered more easily. All this to say that if you do a walk cancel where you spam W after your third attack, you can get back to your N1 really easily. And because your N4 honestly sucks compared to all the rest of your attacks, that can be good. Right? And that's one of her potential combos. The reason why you want to wall cancel instead of dash cancel is because the wall cancel happens faster, and if you dash cancel, it's actually slower than if you didn't cancel at all. Especially with the buffs to her attack speed, the gaps in between her attacks are shorter than they used to be, or at least they're shorter than they seemed to be early on. And it makes it so that dash canceling is barely even frame positive, if frame positive at all. After certain attacks, dash canceling is frame negative. Things will go slower if you do dash cancels than if you just keep mashing. Anyways, that's the first option, and it's a really sweaty option. For now, I've been able to replicate 8 and 3 Ws, but I'm not particularly good, and I'm sure that a very good player could be able to do more, which means that if you're an insane player, N3W probably is her best combo. But there is one combo that is better than 8 and 3W, and it's basically understanding that you're gonna have to do a Q and a charge attack, or 2 charge attacks in your combo, right? In order to absorb the void wits, you'll need to stay in her skill for the full window. The time when you absorb them matters. There are things that suck to do. You don't want to have to do them, but you do have to do them because you need to absorb the void wits. And so ideally, you want to input them at moments where it doesn't make you lose too many normal attacks. From my testing, I've found that in most combos, the optimal time to use the Q is not at the start, but rather after the first N5. Now, the Q does give you normal attack damage percent. It gives you 20% damage when you absorb 3 Void Rifts. But the problem with that is that 20% isn't that high, and just using your Q off rip, well, you're using an animation and it's just making you lose time. If you input your Q right after an N5, right after the last hit, you can cancel the end lag of that last attack, right? After the N5, it takes a little bit for her to finish her animation before she starts into the next attack. And basically, instead of having the, I don't know, 0.5 seconds it takes to do the Q animation just before your combos, you get to overlap that 0.5 seconds with the 0.3-ish seconds that you're stuck at the end of your N5 animation by using the Q to cancel the end lag of that animation, and effectively you end up gaining a tiny little bit of time. And that generally leads to one more attack, which is honestly generally better than having the 20% normal damage on the first string. And so, generally, I've found that Skirk's best combo uses the Q after an N5. The charge attack, unlike the Q, is not something that you can input in the middle of an animation. You can buffer it, sure, but it's not going to use it immediately to cancel an animation, right? If I input the charge attack in the middle of my N3, it will finish my N3 animation and then do the charge attack. If I do it in the middle of my N5, same thing, right? You can buffer it, but it does the end lag before the charge attack goes through. And so doing charge attack after N5 isn't quite as good. Ideally, you want to do the charge attack after an attack that has very, very little end lag. And the optimal one from my testing that I've found so far is N3. That's a whole lot of yapping to say that generally you want to use your Q after an N5 and your charge attack after an N3. That's really all you have to remember. And so Skirk's default combo tends to be E, N5, Q, N5, N3, charge attack, and then spam attacks. And if you do that, you can actually be able to get 4 full strings plus an N3. Here we didn't have hit lag, so things aren't exactly happening the way that they should. With hit lag, depending on what enemy it is, because enemies have a varying amount of hit lag, generally I've found that you don't get that last hit, that last N5, right? We got it infused here on an empty, like on air, but generally it doesn't get infused. But even if it doesn't get infused, even if you get that last hit on the 4th N5 does not get infused, it's still better. And if it does get infused, it's noticeably better. But the point being is that this is generally going to be the best combo for Skirk without attack speed. And this is 20% better than the counts I was doing in my pre-release, which is massive. She is noticeably more powerful in the normal attack mode. These changes don't just affect base Skirk, it also affects Skirk with attack speed. Generally, from what I have looked at, doing the optimal combos with 20% attack speed gets you about a 15% DPS increase. With 25% attack speed, it's about a 20% DPS increase. And with 30% attack speed, it's about a 25% DPS increase. Basically, do -5 to the amount of attack speed, and that's more or less the amount of DPS increase you're getting. The reason I'm looking at these attack speed breakpoints is because these are going to be the most popular ones. People that don't have escoffier are generally going to have their best healer be Mika. If they're using Farina, they want a healer, Mika is generally going to be your go-to healer. And Mika gives somewhere between 20 and 25, with C0 Mika being at around 20 and C6 Mika being at 25. And then 30% is Dahlia C6, 20% is Dahlia C0. Generally, stacking more attack speed than that is not a good idea. Maybe it would be if we got characters in the future that give attack speed and are also providing enough to justify their slot on top of another attack speed giver. But right now, you don't want to play 2 characters that give attack speed because they just don't do enough other than the attack speed, and yeah, it's just not that valuable. With this in mind, Dahlia is a little bit better than I gave him credit for on the pre-release for the same reason. The breakpoints for the attacks are better than I expected, basically, and he's just helping you more. To the point where I'd say he's back with the other big 5 as one of the viable options. A bit lower, not because he's just worse, but because part of the power that he provides is because of Calamity of Eshu being such a powerful weapon. And if you have a 5-star stat sig that's as good as Eshu, or if you have Skirk's signature, then getting a shielder on your team doesn't give you the additional stats from Eshu anymore, which makes Dahlia not quite as good. But if you're doing Finale with like Shenhe or whatever versus Eshu with Dahlia, they're actually very, very close. That's C6 Dahlia, by the way. Non-C6 Dahlia, like I said, is actually noticeably worse, right? It's about 11% instead of 25. Shoutouts to that one daily Dahlia account that did 500 polls on the banner and got C3 Dahlia. Anyways, now that I've gotten the combo yap out of the way, I'll leave you guys with the testing clips, and I'll see you guys for the outro. I'm an idiot. I'm even more of an idiot. Okay, we're fine. Oh. I don't have anything here, right? Yeah. I got hit. Fine. I didn't hit it. Cooked. I won't be able to get it back here. Okay. That's not as bad as what happened when I played on Luna's account, but... time this one's going well. Can't quite to rotate, but we're pretty close. Ooh. That was awful. I guess it's fine. We still killed it before the first attack was done. We only have one Void Rift to absorb here. Let's make a second one. Very nice. Did not need to do this, but it's fine. I'm an idiot. Fine. What the f did I just do? That kills, right? How cooked is this gonna be? Not too cooked, right? But, oh. health like crazy.
심연으로 가라앉아. 의식의 얼음 분신. 안녕뿐. 와라.
Okay, one rotate. Just barely one rotate. So, Skirk's pretty good. Keep in mind, this Abyss is incredible for her in terms of like the leyline. The damage numbers that you've seen on Abyss testing are inflated. Remember that, because that's kind of a big deal. But even if you account for that, Skirk is actually looking fairly strong. If you paid attention in my testing, you'll notice that I was very often getting to HP breakpoints much earlier than I really needed to. I was hitting the PMA while it was invulnerable because it was at the HP threshold for like 10 seconds in a lot of the clips. And so that means that even if it wasn't for the leyline, it wouldn't really change the speed of the clear that much in this specific Abyss. When it comes to like all the different fourth slots you can give her, other than like ones who have escoffier and Farina, she doesn't really give a shit who the last one is. You can use Shenhe, you can use Mualani, you can use Mona, you can use Yelan, you can use Dahlia, Citlali. And honestly, any of the 6 is going to be about as good. But even if you don't have any of those, if you use Singto, it's not going to be that much worse. So far, I would say that my personal favorite is probably Mualani, because to me, Mualani is like the best of both worlds. You get a character whose main purpose in the team is buffing Skirk rather than dealing damage themselves, which is going to scale well with Skirk vertical investment, whether it be through really, really good artifacts or through constellations and or safe. But also, when you are at HP breakpoints where the enemy's almost dead, you can swap back to Mualani and use her uptime. And obviously it does a lot less damage than Vape Mualani, but it can often be enough to kill an enemy. And that also allows you with more flexibility in terms of doing rotations that allow you to finish your chamber with a hold E on Skirk, which will let you start the next chamber with a roided out rotation. That flexibility provided by Mualani, to me, makes her feel better than the other options. You can do something somewhat similar with Shenhe by just buffing Escoffier's damage with Shenhe's skill and hoping that's enough. So Shenhe also feels pretty good. And I would say that those two are the ones that feel the best generally, and there's not that much of a difference between them. When it comes to Shenhe, honestly, I hate it. I hate that the optimal rotation for Shenhe is a split rotation with 2 Escoffier skills, where part of your rotation is literally just normal attacking on Escoffier to wait out your cooldowns. I hate that. That's cringe. But as unpleasant as it is, that doesn't make it bad, and Shenhe definitely is one of the better options. In this Abyss specifically, more cryo from your last slot makes the Overseer feel a bit better because it's easier to keep it below 10 flow momentum. I haven't done that much testing on the Neuvillette teams and other quick swap Skirk teams. Honestly, what I've found is that while quick swap Skirk is good, there's just so many moments where normal attack Skirk can end up using her burst for specific breakpoints, and where quick swap Skirk should use normal attacks for specific breakpoints, that it makes the idea of deciding to go normal attack or deciding to go burst exclusively, it makes Skirk less powerful because it removes a lot of her situational versatility. It removes how she can adapt her rotations to content. And that's honestly part of the main reason why I like Mualani and Shenhe more than I like characters like Yelan and Dahlia, which are reliant on you doing normal attacks to get value. Yelan for her personal damage, Dahlia for attack speed isn't helping your burst do more damage. I will say, my Skirk is probably my best built character on my account now. So if you're comparing her performance to other characters' performances in my videos, keep that in mind. Her build is better than every other build on my account. And honestly, it's not even close. I mean, other than maybe my Shao now. Show? Sure, I will show. But a pretty solid 8-roll flower, pretty solid 8-roll feather, pretty solid 6.5-roll fans. This is my worst piece. 6-roll goblet, okay-ish, 5-roll circlet. My crit ratio doesn't look that insane, but then you realize that I have over 70% attack in substats. 22, 40, 60, almost 80% attack in substats. And you're like, oh yeah, that's quite a lot, huh? But yeah, all in all, Skirk's performance is pretty much just as expected. I will say, because she is and ended up a little bit stronger because of the buffs to her attack animations, that also means that if you don't have Escoffier, the team, like, percentage-wise are still behind by around the same amount, but that same amount is now higher, right? Like, both the Escoffier and the non-Escoffier teams are stronger than we initially thought, which means that unironically, she's not that bad if you don't have Escoffier. Like, she's not great. You're not particularly happy going for Skirk if you don't have escoffier. She will be noticeably worse than the actual good carries, characters like Arlecchino, characters like Verissa. But honestly, she easily passes the Hyperbloom check, even without escoffier. Yeah, pretty solid character overall. As usual, for the first impressions, keep in mind that's only one, in this case, 2 days of testing. There's probably a bunch of stuff I haven't found out yet. I still don't know what the theoretical maximum amount of N3Ws is. Apparently, someone got 8 N3 plus N2. Don't know if that's the theoretical maximum yet. I also don't know, maybe there's combos I haven't thought about yet, or other than N3W. One thing I want to point out is, as a general rule, don't dash on Skirk unless it's to like dodge incoming attacks, because her end lag is short enough that dashing is not really frame positive. Doing a dash cancel because your dash actually has an animation time isn't really faster than just finishing your attack. But yeah, as usual, keep an eye out for the post-release analysis that I'll be posting in the coming weeks. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, YouTube.